Millionaire shocks world, seeing black beggar embrace his daughter in hospital. The waiting room buzzed with hushed whispers, sharp glances slicing through the sterile air like knives. Edward Smith, the millionaire tech mogul everyone knew, sat frozen by the entrance to the ICU. His expensive suit felt tight, suffocating, his world cracking apart with every beep of the machines that kept his daughter Isabella alive. She was barely holding on. Everyone knew the news. The heiress was in critical condition after that terrible accident. People gasped, eyes darting. Then it happened. A figure appeared from the messy streets, a young black boy, unkempt, clothes torn, eyes sharp and wild, with something no one could place. No one expected him here, in this polished, shiny place. Full of hushed pain and sterile smells. Then the shock. The boy bent over Isabella's hospital bed, his skinny arms wrapping around her fragile form. A black beggar, touching the daughter of a millionaire. The moment froze the room. Some gasped, others whispered curses or disbelief. Cameras flashed from curious onlookers, sneaking pictures. "Who is he?" murmured an elderly nurse, shaking her head. "Why does he look so familiar?" Edward's chest tightened. This boy, Liam, they said, was nobody, yet here he was, whispering to his daughter. His voice low, calm, like a secret only Isabella could hear. Her pale face stirred, a faint flutter of eyelids, like a silent acknowledgement. Edward felt his throat clog with a mix of rage and helplessness. How was this happening? What could this homeless kid possibly do in this high-stakes world of doctors, machines, and endless waiting? The ridiculousness of it all hit Edward like a slap. A millionaire, used to control, money, influence, helpless beside a boy no one could place. As Liam's dark eyes locked with Edward's, something unspoken passed between them. Questions, challenges, maybe even a warning. Onlookers buzzed with rumors. Is that some kind of charity stunt? A fake? Rich man and street kid? Sounds fishy. Look how gentle he is with her. Not like anyone else here. The hospital walls seemed to close in. Everyone watching, judging, waiting for an answer. Edward felt his hands trembling, fighting tears he wouldn't let fall. Inside, a war was raging. Grief for Isabella, skepticism about Liam, and something deeper, an ache of loneliness no amount of money could fix. The sterile hospital lights flickered, casting long shadows between these unlikely companions. Suddenly, a woman burst through the canteen doors. Rachel, Liam's mother. Her eyes wild, voice sharp, cutting through the quiet. "Liam, get away from her. That girl isn't yours. You don't belong here." She grabbed at Liam, who pulled back hard, fear and anger flashing in his eyes. The crowd held its breath. Edward stood frozen, watching as this collision of past and present, wealth and poverty, hope and pain unfolded before him. Who was Liam, really? And why did this broken boy feel like the only person who could touch his daughter's soul right now? The hospital was no longer just a place of illness. It had become a battleground, a place where love fought social scorn, and where families were about to be redefined in ways no one saw coming. Edward's voice caught in his throat as he stepped forward. Could he build a family from this chaos? Could he protect Isabella and Liam from the world's cold judgments? Or was this fragile unity doomed to shatter like the life he once knew? The question hung in the air, heavy and impossible. Can love truly overcome the fractures of the past, or are they doomed to repeat the mistakes that tore them apart? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. A lot of subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming your way. And while you're here, hit that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Edward felt the air grow heavy as he stepped closer, his heart hammering in his chest. He wanted to know more about Liam, this boy who had somehow pierced the chaos and pain of the moment. Was there a connection to Isabella that he didn't understand? As he stood there, Rachel's fingers curled tightly into Liam's arm. She looked frantic, eyes wild, desperation painted across her face. "You don't understand. We can't be here. I've told you to stay away from her." The crowd's whispers grew louder, tension thickening like a storm cloud ready to burst. "Mom!" Liam shouted, pulling away. His expression was fierce, an unusual fire igniting within him. "She needs me. You don't know what I can do." "Enough!" Rachel's voice hit like thunder, and before anyone could react, she pulled something from her pocket, a small silver locket, and held it in front of the boy. "You think you can just waltz in here? Look at this." The locket dangled, shining under the fluorescent lights, drawing everyone's attention. Edward squinted at the delicate piece of jewelry, recognizing it. That's Isabella's locket," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean?" murmured a nurse, her brow furrowed with confusion. "It was a gift from her grandmother. We lost it months ago. She was heartbroken." Edward felt a sinking sensation. How could Liam have it? "Is that true?" Rachel's voice dropped lower, uncertainty creeping into her tone. Liam's eyes darted, bouncing back and forth between his mother and the locket. "I found it," Liam said quietly, defiance dissipating. "I found it when I was helping someone. It was just there." He paused, and Edward could see the anger in his eyes was slowly turning to fear. "I just wanted her to remember, to know she wasn't alone." In that moment, everything shifted. Edward's heart raced, the room buzzing with disbelief and stunned silence. Several people approached, trying to hear better, voices muted whispers of shock. Could it really be true? Is this kid really connected to the girl? Rachel's face shaded into panic. "You weren't supposed to go back there. We agreed. Stay out of their world." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Edward saw a flicker of vulnerability in her. It pulled the thread of a long-hidden secret. "What do you mean?" Edward pressed, stepping forward, feeling the heat. "Happened in the past. What does this locket mean?" The crowd leaned in, drawn like moths to a flame, all eyes wide and searching. Liam opened his mouth, but just then, a loud crash echoed through the hallway, reverberating off the sterile walls. Everyone turned, startled. A gurney skidded across the floor, and a group of frantic nurses rushed past, shouting orders. "Code Blue, Room 4. The ominous call suddenly shifted the focus, pulling attention away from the confrontation. "Isabella." Edward felt his heart drop, Panic surged through him. He turned back to Liam, desperation rising. "You need to tell me, now!" But Liam's gaze was drawn to a family shouting by the ICU entrance. A man with wild, frantic eyes. The man lunged forward, fear and rage in his movements. "Get away from my daughter!" Silence ensued, and it hit Edward like a punch in the gut. "Father?" Liam's voice was barely more than a whisper, shock flooding his features. "What are you doing here?" Breath caught in Edward's throat. What was happening? Everything he thought he understood was unraveling. The boy, the locket, the yelling man, that connection was undeniable. Relationships were falling apart. And nothing was certain anymore. The room felt like it was spinning. The need for answers screamed in Edward's mind. But the weight of reality settled around them like a heavy fog. A question burned. If Liam was connected to this stranger, then who was he really? And how would this change? Everything? The room felt like it was spinning. Edward struggled for clarity, but the chaos tightened around him. That shout, the man's fury, pierced him like a dagger. Everything he thought he knew was teetering on the edge. "Who are you?" Rachel's voice trembled, her grip on Liam now less about anger and more about fear. She was losing control, losing grip on whatever thread connected them. The man lurched forward, his face pale and stricken. "Liam, you shouldn't be here. This is not where you belong." His voice cracked like glass under pressure, filled with raw panic. Around them, people shifted awkwardly, uttering quick gasps and nervous glances. Edward's heart raced as he tried to piece together the frayed edges of this moment. How did Liam, a boy who seemed to have emerged from the brink of despair, hold any connection to this frantic man? Liam's eyes sparked with a mix of confusion and defiance. "Dad, why are you here?" There was a desperate plea hidden beneath that fierce facade. It was almost a whisper, a boy left to navigate an adult world. Suddenly, the air grew thick, charged with tension. Before anyone could respond, a shrill alarm pierced through the hospital corridors, shattering the moment like glass. "Code Blue, Room 4, echoed throughout the waiting area, sending nurses scrambling. Edward's stomach dropped as everyone turned their focus. He knew that sound all too well. What if that room held his daughter? What if they were losing her right now? "Isabella!" Edward shouted, instinct kicking in. He tore away from the crowd, his world narrowing down to that one word, this child. But he could feel the pull of Liam's situation, anchoring him. "Dad!" Liam's voice crackled with mixed emotions, laced with both hesitation and something like hope. "I can help! I can—" "No," Rachel shot back, her voice rising above the din. "You can't be a part of this. I told you." But the urgency in Edward's chest flared up again, needing to do something. Then a flicker caught his attention. Across the room, just under the fluorescent lights, a figure appeared. A woman stood there, pale and frantic, shaking. Her face was familiar, cloaked in recognition and dread. It was someone from their past, someone he'd hoped never to see again. "Rachel," the woman called out, voice cracking. "We need to talk. Now." Shockwaves rippled through the gathered crowd. "Who is she?" murmured an onlooker. Desperate whispers bounced off the sterile walls, turning into an anxious hum. Liam's eyes widened, caught between fear and recognition. "No, "It can't be," he stammered. Rachel clutched at Liam, her strength fading. "You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't." Her voice dwindled into a hollow echo. The woman moved closer, her gaze locked onto Liam, her expression filled with something Edward couldn't decipher, a painful mix of longing and heartbreak. "Liam, you need to know the truth. We didn't tell you everything." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged. Edward's heart pounded louder, a brutal drumbeat of anxiety. "What truth?" Edward interjected, fueled by a mixture of anger, curiosity, and a throbbing need for answers. "What do you mean there's more?" Tension curled in the air like smoke, thickening as they all waited. Liam stood frozen, caught in an unforgiving storm of unspoken words. The room held its collective breath, each person teetering on the brink between revelation and despair. The woman took a shaky breath, eyes glistening with emotion. "He has every right to know the truth about who you really are, and why Isabella needs him, why all of this is connected." Everything Edward believed began to fracture, the quiet pieces of his familiar life disintegrating as he stood there, at the precipice of a truth he hadn't been prepared to face. What truth did they hide? Was Liam more connected to Isabella than he realized? The implications twisted in Edward's mind, leaving the weight of uncertainty hanging thick in the air. What was coming, and could anyone really handle it? The woman stepped closer, her eyes locked on Liam, sadness etched deep in her features. "He has every right to know." Edward's heart thundered, a heavy beat in the silence. There was urgency in her voice, a sense of reckoning. "What truth?" Edward demanded, again, his voice thick with anxiety. "What do you mean there's more?" The collective breath of the crowd felt like a drawn bow, ready to snap. Liam stood motionless, confusion etched on his face, while Rachel's grip on him tightened, desperation flickering like a flame about to be snuffed out. "Liam, please, we can't do this here." Rachel's voice wavered, the strength of her earlier stance crumbling. But before she could finish, there was a commotion. A figure rushed into the waiting room, breathless and frantic. It was a man, his hair wild and eyes darting with panic. "Isabella!" he shouted, drawing everyone's gaze, his voice raw and hoarse. "Who's that?" someone whispered, eyes bouncing from the man's disheveled appearance to the tension-filled circle they formed. Liam's eyes widened. "Dad?" Every single whisper in the room died. Rachel's eyes went wide, shock coloring her face as she backed away from Liam, confusion crackling like electricity in the air. "What are you doing here?" she breathed, disbelief cutting through the tension. "I needed to find you," the man said, desperation bleeding into each word. "I wanted to keep you safe. They're coming for you." The chaos of the room bubbled up, a moment caught between understanding and confusion. Edward felt his stomach drop. What could he possibly mean by they? "Who's coming?" Edward stepped into the fray, his voice unraveling under the weight of each word, while the crowd leaned closer, spellbound. "I can't explain now," the man shouted, panic clawing at his voice. "But it's about Isabella. She's in danger." Liam stumbled back, the connection hitting him like a tidal wave. "What? Do you know?" Fear brimming in his voice, he searched his father's wild eyes, trying to decode the fear in their depths. The air shifted, thickened. Edward felt a tightness in his chest. If Isabella was in danger, "Enough!" Rachel cried out, her voice slicing through the cloud of rising alarm. "You've been gone long enough. What do you think you can do? But the man stepped closer to Liam, an odd mix of love and desperation on his face. I had no choice. You deserve to know the truth of who you really are. With those words, everything froze in time. Edward's heart raced. The crowd gasped, eyes wide, layers of confusion unfolding into reality, threading together in ways no one could have imagined. Rachel staggered back, disbelief painted in her shock-stricken expression. What are you talking about? Suddenly, bright lights flickered overhead, a power surge causing everything to pulse. The room dimmed and then blared back to light, as if some cosmic switch had flipped. The hospital echoed with discordant alarms and buzzing confusion as the walls reverberated the chaos. In a split second, before anyone could react, the emergency lights flashed bright, and with a shocking crack, the glass doors at the entrance exploded inward, showering shards across the floor. Gasps rang out, panic enveloping the crowd as a group of dark figures stormed in, faces obscured by masks. "Get down!" they shouted, urgent and commanding, their presence bearing a palpable threat. Every person in the room scattered, terror painting their faces, but Edward's focus was on Liam and Rachel. "Liam!" he roared, trying to keep them safe, reality spiraling into chaos. The figure of the boy moved with unexpected speed, darting toward his father. "What is happening? Dad, please!" But the man's eyes were fixated on something. Someone. "You need to keep him safe," he yelled over the frenzy, each word filled with dread. Liam reached out, fear clenching his heart, but from behind, Rachel pushed him away, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know! You have to go!" Just then, a loud crash echoed, sending fear rippling through the crowd. The world turned into an explosion of sound as everything collapsed into a wild storm of panic and confusion, swirling into an unrecognizable mess. "Isabella!" Edward shouted again, this time filled with a sense of helplessness. What was happening? Who was Liam really? Liam froze, staring at Rachel, questions pooling in his eyes. The truth felt close, yet unbelievably far. As the chaos erupted around them, everything they both believed began to unravel, leaving nothing but fear and confusion hanging in the air. In that moment, as the shadows loomed closer, a question burned through the confusion, making their world shift. Were they truly safe? Or was a truth about to emerge that would change everything? Amid the chaos of the waiting room, the air felt charged, thick with fear and uncertainty. Edward's heart raced as he scanned the crowd, eyes darting from the panicked faces of strangers to the urgency of the masked intruders. Time froze, each second hanging heavy with impending dread. "Liam, come here!" Edward shouted, desperation surging through him, fought against the tide of terror pushing him back. "Stay close," Rachel urged, her voice thick with urgency as she pulled Liam closer. But the dark figures moved with purpose, breaking through the crowd, shouting, commanding silence. Suddenly, one of the figures reached for the gurney, tearing away the sheets as if searching for something, their intent clear, their eyes wild. "Find the girl, she's the key!" It was a command wrapped in desperation. Edward felt a chill crash over him. "What do you mean? What girl?" His voice echoed through the mayhem, swallowed quickly by the fear that gripped everyone. "Isabella is in danger," the man shouted again, his panic contagious. Edward's chest tightened. He was losing control of everything, of the truth, of his daughter, of this boy, Liam, who seemed connected to it all. Just then, Liam's mouth dropped open, realization dawning like a harsh light. "Isabella? Why do you care so much about her?" The masked intruder's eyes flickered over Liam, a mix of guilt and urgency washing over him. "Because you're part of this, you can stop it." The words struck like a slap. Edward felt the air whoosh from his lungs. "Stop what? Who are you?" The room felt like it was shrinking, the chaos thickening around him. Before the intruder could respond, the glass doors behind them shattered again as another group burst in. More masked figures, wielding equipment that glinted ominously. "Hurry! We have to move!" one yelled, pointing toward the gurney. "Get the boy! We need him!" Liam's eyes widened, terror reflected in their depths. "Me? Why?" "Because you're the one they need. You carry the answer." Confusion washed over Edward. What could that mean? How could Liam, a boy who seemed so lost, hold any answers? "No, don't touch him!" Edward yelled, instinctively stepping in front of his son. Suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered again and dimmed. Edward's breath caught as he was engulfed in darkness. A split second that turned everything to shadows. The room erupted into confusion, voices raised in panic, each person morphing into a wild image of fear. In that blur, something crashed hard into Edward. Someone hard. He stumbled back. Everything felt surreal, twisting before his eyes. But a pair of familiar eyes locked onto his, Rachel's. "Get away from him!" she screamed. But it was too late. Liam had darted forward, caught somewhere between the masks of fear and confusion. "Liam, no!" Edward shouted again. But in a flash, the light returned with blinding intensity. In that heart-stopping moment, a blinding flare of color erupted from Liam, a wave of light that surged through the room. It swirled and twisted, reaching the figures, illuminating them. The air sizzled, the screaming faded, replaced by a voice that shook through every part of the hospital. "Enough!" the figure roared, the sound echoing against the walls, freezing everyone in their place. The world vanished into a vortex of light and sound. It disrupted the very fabric of what they believed to be real. Every face turned toward Liam, confusion twisting into horror. Edward felt it carve through him. A connection, visceral and raw. Something deep within stirred. A truth that he couldn't comprehend began unraveling. The intruders froze, caught in the current like moths to a flame. "Your time is running out," the voice boomed, easily shredding the air. Something pivotal was pulling at the core of Liam. Edward's heart raced, fear turning into desperate hope. "Liam, what do you know?" Edward whispered, vision blurring with the weight of realization. The entire world around them trembled. And then, silence. An abrupt stillness fell. All that noise morphed into a heavy quiet. It was a vacuum of unanswered questions. The lights flickered again, sending shadows dancing wildly against the walls. Edward's heart thudded as they all stood teetering on the brink of unknowing. Liam's expression shifted, eyes wide. I don't understand." His voice trembled, echoing with uncertainty. Then the walls pulsated, shaking with power. Everything went dark. Edward felt fear clawing deep, choking out his voice. What had been revealed? What truth had been unveiled? And how would it change everything? As darkness consumed them all, the only sound that filled the room was a heartbeat, a frantic rhythm of uncertainty, waiting, just waiting, for the storm to break. The darkness enveloped them, thick and pulsating. A heartbeat echoed, a wild rhythm that wrapped around them, blurring the lines of reality. Edward felt lost in a storm of fear and confusion, each breath tightening in his chest. Liam stood frozen, eyes wide, searching for answers in the chaos. Suddenly, the air shifted. A loud thundering roar erupted outside, shaking the walls of the hospital as the lights flickered above. With a blinding flash, a shock wave surged through the room. It sent everyone stumbling, the crowd reeling in terror, gasping as the world tilted. Shadows twisted and merged, creating a dark, swirling mass. Then came a crack, sharp and sudden. A burst of energy propelled through everyone, knocking them to their knees. Edward blinked, shaking his head to clear the haze. As the chaos calmed momentarily, silence fell, and fear hung like a cloud. But then, something else emerged, an unfamiliar presence, sharp and piercing. In the sudden stillness, a figure stumbled into their view, covered in a shroud of darkness, face obscured, yet somehow recognizable. The crowd gasped again, breaths caught in their throats. Edward squinted, breath hitching in disbelief. The figure stepped closer, revealing familiar features, Isabella's face. But something was off. Something unsettling flickered behind her eyes, a knowledge unraveled. Isabella? Edward's voice trembled, threads of hope mingling with dread. No. Rachel's voice cracked, a whisper of despair. It can't be. How? The young girl's eyes bore into the crowd, alive with a radiant glow, but also shadowed with something deeper. I know who I am, she said, power lacing her words. And I know him. I know Liam. Every head turned, confusion mingling with shock. What are you talking about? Edward's world twisted as he struggled for footing. Isabella, please. But it was too late. Liam took a hesitant step forward, uncertainty weaving through him. You know me? Yes, she said, voice steady, yet filled with a haunting echo. Everything, the truth that is buried. A tremor ran through the crowd, heat rising as questions spilled like wildfire. What truth? Edward demanded, eyes darting between them. Was this even his daughter? The girl standing there was too altered, too raw. Suddenly, the masked figures stirred, confused by the shift in focus. What's happening? One whispered, eyes flashing, uncertain of their purpose. A whisper traveled through the crowd, panic bubbling anew as confusion mingled with a strange awe. Stay back, Rachel shouted, positioning herself protectively in front of Liam, her voice steeled against the storm brewing inward. Isabella, what are you doing? I'm here to protect him, Isabella replied, a fierce determination carving through the air, and to reveal the truth. Those words sparked a ripple of tension. Edward's heart raced. Protect him? From what? Liam, absorbed in disbelief, stumbled backward, grappling with the enormity of her presence. But you're not who you think, Isabella interrupted, the glow in her eyes flaring brightly, illuminating the darkness creeping around them, threatening to engulf the remnants of their reality. You have to understand. Before she could finish, the emergency lights flashed violently as another crash caved in from outside, accompanied by the sound of shattered glass. The masked figures began to retreat, hesitating as fear gripped them. Perhaps they sensed something worse was coming than they had bargained for. "Wait! What are you afraid of?" Edward shouted. "If you're after Isabella, then what?" Isabella's eyes locked onto him, sorrow laced with determination. "Because Liam is my brother, and they're here to erase our existence." The world fell silent. Every face turned pale with shock, disbelief hanging heavy in the air. Everything Edward thought he knew shattered in an instant. Brother? The word echoed through Edward's mind, creating a devastating ripple that fractured their reality. "What?" he breathed, searching for coherence in the storm of secrets unveiled. "This can't be." How? As panic swelled, another eruption shattered the unusual calm. The glass doors burst open again, and more figures rushed in, commanding and relentless, the lights flickering once more, threatening to plunge them back into darkness. "Get down!" one of the new arrivals shouted. "We have to leave, now!" Edward's heart pounded, a mix of fear, desperation, and disbelief flooding his veins. The connections, the truths, they twisted closer, messy and tangled, leading to an unknown destination. "Isabella is in danger!" the newcomer yelled. But the words faded as the chaos swallowed them again. A storm of noise and urgency blocking out reason. Who were they? What truth had just tumbled from Isabella's lips? Everything tilted. Secrets and connections spiraled, and as they all stood on the brink of reality's collapse, a single haunting question echoed through the chaos. What else have we lost? The darkness felt alive, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Edward's chest tightened as Isabella's revelation settled heavy in the air. Liam looked between them. Confusion spread across his face, his breaths coming out in short, sharp bursts. The crowd held its breath, eyes wide, a sea of shock washing over the room. "Isabella, my brother," Liam whispered, the words barely breaking through the chaos. Fear coursed through him, mingled with something else, an awakening. "Liam, listen to me," Isabella started, but her voice was drowned out by the sudden cacophony of shouts and alarms. Just then, the lights flickered intensely, and another figure emerged from the shadows, breathless, eyes wild. It was a woman, her hair disheveled, clothes torn, face streaked with dirt. "Get out, now!" she yelled, throwing herself into the room just as chaos erupted anew. "They're coming for you, all of you!" Edward felt his heart drop. Who was she? A new player in this already twisted tale? She stumbled forward, grasping Isabella's shoulders with a frantic urgency. "We don't have much time. They know." "What are you talking about? Who are they?" Edward demanded, his world tilting further into madness. The woman hesitated, looking at Isabella with a mix of fear and something deeper, a bond. "You need to remember everything you've forgotten." Liam blinked, shaken, caught between truths unfurling like a wilting flower. Forgotten? What did I forget? But before they could make sense of it all, a massive boom shook the hospital. The walls trembled. Like him. Suddenly, she pulled something from her pocket, a small, weathered photograph. "This proves everything," she cried, thrusting it forward. The image caught the light, and the room fell silent as they all leaned in. Edward's breath caught in his throat. There, in faded colors, stood a younger version of Isabella, a boy beside her, grinning widely. They looked so familiar, but it was the woman in the photo that sent a chill down his spine. She looked just like the woman in front of them. "Mom?" Leon's voice cracked, the weight of recognition scalding him. The woman's face shifted, a blend of heartbreak and longing. "I never wanted to lose you. You don't know what's at stake. There's so much more to this story." But before she could explain, blinding lights swarmed the room, and gunfire erupted. The masked figures kicked into action, shouting orders, chaos reigning once more. In the midst of it all, Isabella stepped forward, a fierce glow radiating from her, emanating a power no one had seen. "Stop. This isn't how it has to go." The intensity of her presence barbed the chaos for a split second. And then it happened. A cracking sound filled the air, a wild light bursting from Isabella, illuminating everyone in blinding radiance. Edward shielded his eyes. Is this what she was hiding? But just as quickly as it started, it faded, and in that moment of light, the world shifted again. When it fell dark, the room held its breath. Faces transformed. Fear turned to awe, but no answers followed. In an instant, everything changed again, and the woman stood before them, somehow different. "Liam, you're in danger. But you're not just human," she whispered, each word stirring something ancient buried deep within. Edward's heart raced. What did that mean? What did they all miss? Before he could voice the questions swarming in his mind, a deafening crash imploded behind them. Another wave of masked intruders poured in, eyes scanning the room, and darkness flooded back, smothering their reality. With every ounce of his being, Edward shouted, "What truth have you hidden from us?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine, ready to drop as the chaos closed in. As the masked figures moved, capturing the stunned crowd, time felt suspended. They were but seconds away from answers. But could this revelation shatter everything they knew, or pull them deeper into the shadows? The chaos erupted all around them, a blend of cries and shouts that filled the already tense atmosphere. Edward felt the darkness close in, the panic washing over him like a tidal wave. Isabella stood at the center. Shimmer of power flickering across her features, yet it felt fleeting, a dying star on the brink of collapse. "Get down!" the intruders yelled again, their command cutting through the din as they drew closer, weapons drawn. The shadows shifted, and Edward's heart raced as a feeling of dread settled over him. What was about to happen? Liam stumbled back, eyes wide and frightened. "Isabella, what do you mean we're—" But before he could finish, the stranger dashed forward, her body colliding with the masked figures with an unexpected intensity. "You can't take them!" she screamed, her voice filled with desperation. In that moment, a blinding flash erupted from her, radiating outward. The room lit up with a shocking brilliance. For an instant, Edward's breath caught. Everything froze. The chaos, the fear, the darkness, all held still in a moment of sheer disbelief. But just as quickly, the light flickered, and when it dimmed, something else emerged at the center of the disruption. A shimmer of air hung in the space where the woman had been. Time paused, and the crowd shifted. But then, a loud crack echoed, slicing through the air. The floor beneath their feet trembled, and a rift split wide open near the gurney, pulsing with eerie light. Fear wrapped its tendrils around Edward, strong and unyielding. "No!" Isabella screamed, lunging forward, but it was too late. A figure emerged from the rift, cloaked in shadows, stepping through like a ghost, freed from its confines. As the figure came into focus, Edward's heart plummeted. The last person he ever expected to see, a face he thought he'd left behind decades ago, his mother. "Mom," he whispered, a thick lump forming in his throat. Her eyes glowed with urgency, haunted with something unspoken. "Edward, you don't understand. They're coming for him," she cried, pointing at Liam, her voice rising over the chaos. "I made mistakes to protect you, to protect him." Everything around him spiraled into confusion. Liam stumbled back again, shock flooding his face. "What? Who are you? What do you mean, coming for him?" "Shut up," one of the intruders roared. They moved closer, their attention shifting dangerously towards the rift. "You don't know what you're all tangled in," Edward's mother shouted, pleading as her eyes darted between Isabella, Liam, and the intruders. "We thought we could hide it. We buried it deep, but—" The effect of her words sent tremors through Edward's mind. What could she possibly know about any of this? "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice cracking. "They're here for Liam because he has something we didn't protect." Her breath caught, anguish streaking across her face. "And it's something only Isabella can control." Suddenly, the masked figure surged forward. The air crackled, tension thickening, and everything felt as if it were about to ignite. Edward drew closer, torn between the weight of the truth and the impending chaos. But then, with a sudden explosion, the lights blinked out again. "No!" he yelled, panic swelling in his chest as darkness enveloped them once more. What did his mother mean? What was happening? With every breath, uncertainty loomed larger. The truth shattered. The bonds between them twisted tighter, and something fundamental was about to break. As the lights flickered back to life, a heavy silence fell, the stillness before the storm. And in that moment, they all stood on the edge, teetering in a world that no longer felt stable. Edward's heart raced, fear twisting inside him. He had to know. What was it that made Liam so important? And why were the secrets of the past crashing back? The world had tilted, and nothing would ever be the same again. The darkness pressed in, heavy and stifling. Edward's heart raced, trapped inside a cage of confusion and dread. He stared at the woman claiming to be his mother, her familiar features twisting into something unrecognizable. Liam seemed frozen, caught between disbelief and fear. Time stood still. In that moment, each heartbeat echoing too loudly, too painfully, as if they were suspended in a void. Just then, Isabella stepped forward, her light flickering. "We need to get out of here," she yelled, but the growing tension was like a taut rope threatened to snap. The atmosphere crackled, filled with unspoken truths and looming threats. Before Edward could grasp what the woman meant, the masked figures surged forward, weapons glinting in the harsh, fluorescent light. "Get down, now!" they screamed, advancing with an alarming intensity that churned Edward's stomach. "Isabella!" Edward shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. But his words felt lost in the chaotic blend of fear and uncertainty. He couldn't lose her, not again. All at once, in a clash of chaos, the rift behind the woman pulsed. With a sharp gasp, she reached out toward it. "You have to remember, Ed." But before she could finish, the air erupted in a deafening sonic boom. A blinding vortex erupted from the portal, bathing the room in a violent array of colors. Edward stumbled back, fear walloping his chest as the world engulfed him. Everything felt surreal. The masked figures fell back, stunned, as the swirling light spiraled closer, drawing everything into the heart of its powerful surge. It levitated, illuminating the faces around him, revealing shock and horror etched deep in their expressions. It felt like reality was unraveling beneath him. Suddenly, amid the chaos, a deep, haunting voice echoed from the depths of the light. "You have all been foolish to hide," it rumbled, saturating the air with an unsettling presence. "Now, truth is coming home." Edward's stomach dropped. A swirling figure emerged, slowly materializing from the light. It was shrouded in black and cold as night, yet Edward felt an eerie familiarity in its presence. It stepped forward, the light bending away as if in fear. Then, shock coursed through him like electric current. "No, it can't be," Edward whispered, recognizing the face that began to amass in the light. "Dad?" The revelation hit like a brutal punch, echoing in his mind. His father, the man he thought was lost forever, stood before him, but he looked changed, darker. His eyes held an otherworldly glow, flickering with truths sealed away too long. "Edward," his father said, voice a mixture of authority and sorrow. Each syllable struck deep, sending tremors through the room. "The time has come to reclaim what is ours." The crowd gasped, eyes darting from Edward to his father, power shifting palpably. The rift expanded, pulsating, as the masked figures hesitated, their bravado faltering before this newfound force. "Don't you understand?" Edward's father continued, stepping closer, darkness swirling around him. "Liam is part of our legacy. You have all been living a lie." "What do you mean, a lie?" Rachel shrieked, stepping back. "What are you talking about?" "Everything you know is rooted in deception," his father replied, voice steady, yet it shook the very foundation. "Liam carries the key to our true lineage, the power we once were meant to protect." He turned his gaze towards Liam, intention blazing. "It's time he learns." Panic washed over Edward as he processed the shifting dynamics, the fragile reality threatening to dissolve. "You're saying," Edward's voice faltered, "that Liam is, what, some kind of heir?" "More than you can fathom," the dark figure said, eyes locked onto Liam. "He's the last in a bloodline carrying ancient powers meant to be awakened, powers that could reshape everything." The implications slapped him in the face like a cold wave. Everything he thought he understood shattered. Did this mean their lives had always been intertwined? The revelation sent a jolt of fear through him. What would this mean for Isabella, for them all? As Edward's mind spun, a shriek sliced through the encroaching chaos. The masked figures surged forward again, their resolve hardening as they lunged towards Liam. "No!" Edward shouted, lunging forward, desperation driving him. But as he reached for Liam, another wave roared from the portal, engulfing everything in light. The shriek of confusion blended into a cacophony of noise that drowned out reason entirely. Reality felt like it was twisting apart, the room swirling and spiraling as everything broke down. In that moment of chaos, everything Edward believed crumbled to dust, leaving behind questions darker than shadows. Who was Liam truly? What had been hidden, and what would they? lose in the fight that was about to begin. The fragile connections felt ready to snap, and as the light burst forth, it left them all dangling on the brink of an unknown abyss. The whirlwind of chaos froze for just a second. Edward's father, dark and powerful, stepped further into the hospital room. The air crackled with tension as the masked figures hesitated, caught between their mission and the revelation bombarding them. "Dad!" Edward's shout echoed, disbelief unspooling in his chest. "What does this mean? How can Liam—" "Focus," his father snapped, eyes narrowing as he turned toward the figures, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. They don't understand what they're dealing with. Liam stood torn between dread and curiosity, heart racing. "What do you want from me?" His voice trembled, charged with a mix of fear and untapped strength. "They need you," Edward's father said, voice deep and heavy. "You hold the key to our legacy, the path to unearth the truth. Your sister, she's always known." Isabella stepped forward, fiery determination sparking in her eyes. "We all have the power within, but it's time to awaken it." She raised her hands, the energy around her shimmering brightly, illuminating faces that were once masked in shadow. "Enough!" one of the intruders yelled, a flash of fear crossing his face as he leveled his weapon. But before he could act, Isabella summoned the energy around her. "You won't harm us." Her voice rang out, echoing with authority. Suddenly, a shockwave pushed back against the intruders, sending them flying against the wall. Gasps erupted from the remaining crowd. Edward watched in awe, the pure power emanating from Isabella, a surge of hope piercing through despair. But questions pounded in his mind. What did awakening this power mean? In that instant of revelation, another wave of light spilled from the rift. It pulsed like a living heartbeat. Edward's heart raced. They had a moment, a chance to break free from the ties of their past. But was it enough? Liam's breath caught, the answer dawning on him. "If we're going to do this, I need to remember everything." His voice was trembling yet firm, empowerment blossoming amid fear. "Then, remember," Edward's father commanded, stepping closer, eyes unwavering. "Face it together. You're not alone, and you never were." The room vibrated with energy as Liam closed his eyes, images flooding him, the memories he lost, the truth hidden beneath layers of fear, flashes of laughter, of warmth, and then darkness rushing in. Isabella's hand reached out, a tether to keep him grounded. "I'm scared," Liam whispered, voice quaking. "You're stronger than you think," Bella reassured him. "We will fight together." The masked figures swarmed again, coming forward, their mission now clearer than before. But with an unexpected flash, the room erupted once more. Light spilled from the rift, blinding them all, as one by one, the figures fell back, entranced. "This is our chance," Isabella shouted, pulling Liam into the glow. "Now we break the cycle." As the energy enveloped them, a fierce determination ignited between the siblings. With one heartbeat, they synchronized, channeling their collective strength. "Together!" Liam yelled as the light surged. Boom! The hospital shook, the walls vibrating with their united force. And just as quickly, the darkness swarmed, vanquishing the masked figures in a tempest of light. The chaos began to settle. Silence fell, a solemn peace cascading through the air. Edward blinked, heart racing. The intruders were gone, overpowered by their resilience. They stood together, Liam and Isabella, tethered by truth. The past finally laid bare. The family he thought dissolved was here. The shadows seemed to lift. Edward looked around, tears welling up. Relief washed over him. We did it. We're safe. And in that heartbeat of triumph, the air shimmered, pulling Edward's father towards the rift. I'll be here if you need me. Use your power wisely. And just like that, he was gone, the energy pulsing back into the void. What now? Rachel asked, her breathing steadying, eyes wide with confusion, yet flickering in hope. Isabella exchanged looks with Liam, a quiet understanding brewing. Now, we forge our own path. We embrace who we are. Edward felt a swelling certainty, but also a mystery at the precipice of their adventures. A future awaited them, unknown yet filled with promise. As they walked forward, he could see the flickering lights of the hospital coming back to life around them. But what else lingered in the shadows? What other truths were hidden beneath the surface? Only time would tell. But before this story closes, I need you to listen closely. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss these upcoming exclusive stories unfolding next. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and make sure we reach everyone out there. Flood the comments section with your reactions. What do you think happened? Share your theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this finale. True fans know how vital it is to support the channel. Let's keep the magic alive.